Hey, coming up on today's podcast, we got a little Hoonigan news for you. Maybe a little financial issues going on, but we'll see. Not so bad, we don't think. We got some Ford news about the Blue Oval City in Tennessee. We got some more Ford news about a recall that is recurring. Interesting. And our good friends at Scout Motors are giving us another tease. And on top of that, I think Tesla has finally committed to revealing the RoboTaxi we've all wanted. All of that coming up on today's podcast right after this. Hey, everybody. Welcome into the podcast, episode
167.
If not, we'll fix it in post.
Absolutely. Say hello to my friend Keith over here.
Hey, I'm going to smack the mic a couple more times while we're coming in. Everybody.
Knock it off. Hey, we're in a new environment today.
Literally said to Jay when we were getting this set up, how many times am I going to smack the mic?
Yeah, I pull cords, don't worry.
What's going on? How are you doing?
I'm good, man.
Hey, watch this. The magic of not being in different rooms.
Right on. We are not the first time we've been in the same room together to record our podcast, but today we're doing it. We were in a studio.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
We are both in the same vicinity. Do we want to let people know where we're at?
Nah.
No, we're not going to do that.
You got to watch for another
couple
episode. Dozen episodes.
That's right. So, but yeah, we've got some exciting stuff to talk about today. Of course, hopefully all of you guys were with us on our ride across Kansas after the Mountain West Overland Expo in Loveland, Colorado. That was a lot of fun. If you haven't watched that, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Go to our channel. Make sure you do subscribe, and you can check that out. Guess what? It's free. Anytime you watch our podcast, of course, you can catch us on any podcasting platform, wherever you get your podcast, audio podcast, we're there. But you always can go check the video version of this out on our YouTube channel, and it's free to you, but you watching actually helps us out a lot. So keep that in mind. It's free.
So
that's the best way to help us.
Getting all awkward here because I don't know what to do with my hands. You know, normally we're not in a studio, and I've got all these like buttons and things to deal with, and I'm just sitting here, and it's all just kind of already doing its thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what to do, but I'll figure it out as we go.
I think we just need to talk.
All right.
So what we do
in addition to that, remember that you can, as I'm pointing at the camera, for those of you listening, you can watch this podcast on our YouTube channel. There's a podcast channel? No, it's called a what is it? It's a section. It's just a podcast.
That
thing over on the thing by the thing.
Tab. It's
yeah.
It's a playlist is what it is basically.
That's it. Yeah.
But yeah, you can go to youtube.com/Parts County Gurus and catch us there. A lot of fun.
So football season started, I guess.
Football season started.
I was coaching baseball last night. A funny thing happened. I was coaching baseball, and I thought Jay's probably trying to get all the football games lined up for. Why would anybody do that in the middle of baseball season?
I know, man. But this is how it is. So I love football. I love baseball as well, especially this time of year. There's no better time of year in baseball than October and September, in my opinion. So here we come. It's going to come down to some interesting front runners. We shall see.
Hey, can we talk for just a minute about? And I'm learning, like, when I look away, it's really bad, like, audio. So I've got to keep my mouth pointed in this direction.
Yes, you need to do that.
I just saw a lady walk by with a vacuum cleaner. What are the odds, Jay? What are the odds that we this is our life? Like, you start to podcast, and the neighbor starts up his weed blower. I was listening to the Smartless podcast and they interviewed Henry Winkler, and Henry Winkler's neighbor fired up his weed blower, right?
Oh,
So I want to talk about the most significant individual in the history of the National Football League for a minute,
okay.
which of course is Taylor Swift.
Oh, yeah, right. And she is. She actually is. She's not just the most important person in football either. So just keep that in mind.
So I was talking to my wife about this the other day, and now hear me out, you guys. I'm not trying. I'm not going to throw shade, no pun intended. She is very talented. Nothing against her. I've listened to her stuff. I do listen to her stuff. My wife and a lot of her fans put her at this kind of Elvis level. Okay,
I could see that.
and here's the thing that I have with that. I put her more at a Bob Dylan level. She is a tremendously talented songwriter,
Well,
but she's not the complete package.
I mean, you threw out Elvis and Dylan. What else are you looking for?
Here's the thing. I need.
I mean, she's like a Charlie's Angel, even. Man.
If you put her at that kind of the premier level of the all-time greats, Michael Jackson. I mean, how far back do you want to go? Louis Armstrong.
There's no Prince.
Prince, okay, but she's not like when you. I watched her Eras tour on the Disney Channel. Watched the video of it. She runs around, she sings, she plays piano, she pulls her acoustic guitar out, she plays. But there's not this, like, she doesn't have the presence that... Let's go back to Elvis, right?
Right.
One of the best performances Elvis ever made was on his comeback special. Would you agree?
Absolutely, 100%.
There's
You're talking about when he's in the black leather?
Yeah.
In the round kind of a thing? Yeah.
So there's a
Great
section
stuff.
that you just called out when he's in the round where he's with his band and they're all playing acoustic.
Right.
And that is taking all the trickery away. One of the amazing things about Taylor Swift in concert is all the special effects, the production value of it, right? Mm-hmm. But is she really going to pull off that presence without those things? That's kind of where I'm going with this.
Kiss did.
Okay, but Kiss is not at an Elvis level, right?
Truth.
And I guess, to me, give her dues, but she's not the Beatles.
No.
Right?
She's not the Beatles to us, but she's the Beatles.
Do you think she's
to
as
this
big
generation.
as the Beatles to this generation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely 100%. I gotta go there, man.
So you would put her above I'm trying to think of like the big, well, she is this generation's biggest name.
That's what I'm saying.
But is she at a Michael Jackson level?
For this generation, yes.
You think she's as big as Michael Jackson?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think
I just don't see it. I'm putting her at a Bob Dylan level.
That's because you're not a follower. I'm not
a Swiftie?
You're not a Swiftie.
All right.
And you got to look at that, right? So, for example, as big as the Beatles were, how many of our parents, right, or grandparents were going, you don't need to be listening to that junk. They're hippies,
Yeah, I see that.
You see what I'm saying?
But the whole package, the
songwriting.
Elvis had the stage presence. He could sing.
Taylor's
he could
got
play
stage
guitar.
Presence. Taylor's got stage presence. She can sing. She can play guitar. She can play piano. She can write.
But she doesn't have the kind of vocal like there's no Ella Fitzgerald.
That's subjective.
I mean, she's not up in the
subjective.
stratosphere. She doesn't have that vocal.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. So
Bob Dylan sucked vocally.
He did.
But he was a great songwriter.
But that's kind of why I'm putting her there. He was a great songwriter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But he just didn't have the vocal quality.
All right, let's bring another great songwriter, singer, who's no longer with us, that his vocal, you could argue, was not that great, but it was him and it worked, and that's Tom Petty.
Yeah. I can see that, but what I don't see is Tom Petty being at the Michael Jackson level.
No, but he was huge. When your songs are being recorded by Dolly Parton, I think he kind of made it.
Okay. Dolly Parton's another great example. Like, is Taylor Swift at that level?
I think Dolly Parton thinks so.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Is she a Miley Cyrus with what she does?
Oh, I wouldn't put Miley at that.
I don't.
Yeah,
You know, I mean,
yeah.
Miley Cyrus is so different, right?
Yeah.
Look at us talking about how do we know this stuff?
It's pop culture. All right, so if
Could
you've
it be
never,
Music City,
yeah,
Does that have
could
something to
be,
do with it?
could
Yeah,
be.
okay,
If you guys
yeah.
have, if you've never, if this is your first podcast, welcome. This is the counter show. I forgot to do this earlier because you were doing so well, and I just tried to stay out of your way.
Yeah, let's talk about what we do, Keith.
We are basically a mobility centric podcast. Anything with wheels. I got to stop doing that. I got to, because you're cutting out hoverboards. If you say anything with wheels, that doesn't include the futuristic stuff.
Dude,
right?
I got to tell you this. This is the craziest thing. So
Okay.
I went to the beach recently, right? And I'm sitting there just in my chair, and which, by the way, thank you, Top Don, who happens to be one of our brand partners. I was sitting on the beach watching college football on my laptop with no issues of power because I have my Top Don power block, which there's going to be a video out there on it. Make sure you tune in. And if you want one, go to their website, but you go to our website, partscounterguru.com, and click on show specials, and you will find the link there for Top Don. Click that link and go shopping and go look for that charging station, and it is amazing. But I was able to keep my laptop charged, keep my phone charged for my hotspot, watch football, and I was also powering my Bluetooth Bose speaker. I had people around me watching the games. It was like I had an audience behind me, man. So it was crazy. But anyway, the weirdest thing I saw, I thought of you immediately, man. This dude was on a stubby beach chair, lawn chair, small, but he had it fixed and bolted to a one wheel. And he was sitting on the lawn chair on a one wheel, running up and down the beach.
All right.
That
Sure,
was clever, man. I thought it was awesome. That's one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Been doing the one wheel a lot lately. They're tons of fun.
So
Watch
there
the
you go.
dog that you sent me that rides the one wheel, and
Right. So anyway, to Keith's point, we're mobility. We cover everything. We're agnostic when it comes to wheels.
So the podcast is called The Counter Show. Effectively sitting at a parts counter talking pop culture or whatever.
Yeah, movies,
Cars
whatever.
come into it.
Yeah.
And then over on the YouTube side, which is youtube.com/Parts Counter Gurus, or just search Parts Counter Gurus, we do product review videos. We get into overlanding, as Jay already mentioned, automotive products, how-to videos. We get into some interesting things that aren't necessarily car-centric. There's some shop vac videos out there. And yeah,
It's related
it's
in one
it's a variety
in one
show.
way, right?
Yeah.
It's related in one way, shape, or form, and so we try to keep it very well rounded as far as content for you guys, our listeners, and our viewers. And again, we've got probably around over 800 videos out there. We've got a lot of
Million views, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
1 million views on YouTube. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you guys. We're doing something. So here we are. We're going to get into
Still trying to figure out what to do with my hands.
right. We're going to get into our first story. just hang out, man. I don't think anybody cares what you do with your hands.
All
As
right.
long as you're keeping them up so people can see what you're doing with your hands. So we talked about this particular company ad nauseum, man. I mean, it's just, we love them. Ken Block, the founder of Hoonigan, basically.
This is a big deal.
It is a big
It's a
deal.
really big deal.
Not really sure what the circumstances that prevail that has pushed them in this direction, but I can only speculate that their guy is no longer with us, which had an impact on, I'm assuming, their viewership and
Yeah, so
sales and
Ken is a great marketing guy. He understood the value that he brought to the brand. And he had done clothing and shoes and all that before. Ken died a couple years ago. There was if I'm understanding this correctly, Wheel Pros kind of owned Hoonigan, had multiple brands, and Ken was out doing videos, Hoonigan videos, the drift videos, right? The rally car stuff that he would do these amazing, and if you haven't seen it, go check out his, the YouTube channel, where he would drift through famous cities and do these crazy stunts, drifted up Pikes Peak.
Yeah.
And everybody sort of knew that it was a growing brand and it was popular, and Ken helped do that. The one thing they didn't count on is Ken not being around anymore.
Yeah, it was a sudden tragic loss.
So, and he died in a snowmobiling accident, right? So now they have this situation where the company's got massive amounts of debt. What did I see? 1.2
billion in debts, which is, that's just, I don't understand how that happens.
Yep.
I'm sure that a lot more will come out, but they're basically saying the company, which has been rolled into an existing aftermarket wheel company owned by private equity firm Clear Lake Capital, is attempting to discharge $1.2 billion in debts and raise up to $570 million in new capital. Now, we've talked about this a lot. When a company files for bankruptcy, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're out of business or anything like that. They're restructuring to get a foothold. And gain traction to kind of recover and start again and fresh and hopefully find new direction.
In layman's terms, they're not able to pay all their bills, so they go to the court and ask for help protecting them from debtors,
that's right,
creditors, whatever, people that they owe money to. And so then the court steps in and decides who gets paid and what order in line those people get paid.
That's right.
And there's all kinds of rules around that. And so some of the other companies, which I found interesting in this, that roll up into Wheel Pros, were TSW, American Racing, who...
That's a wheel company.
American Racing, but ARE, I believe, is their truck topper
That's
camper, which is American Racing Equipment.
Right.
Rotiform, and there's some other ones in there too. But yeah, so those are brands that you guys, these are all connected.
TSW.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's it's this is not an uncommon situation, honestly. We felt it was worthy to bring up though because we've covered Ken Block and the Hoonigan team for ever since we've been podcasting. I think,
Yep.
Keith really got me into them, and we were so excited a couple years ago because Keith and I we ran into Ken and met him, and he was so gracious to give us the time of day. But that's who he was. That was exactly what Ken was all about. He was all about the fan. He was more about the fan than he was himself, and that stood out to both of us when we met him at SEMA. But he was actually in town shooting his latest, and I'm really disappointed that we lost him because I was looking forward to the Unitron stuff, man. Because he was going, like you said, all over the world filming these drifting pieces in Vegas, and so he was in Vegas shooting that. And you need to go check those out if you haven't seen the Hoonitron versions, because it's wicked to hear that thing just wind up.
The Audi, yeah. Man, just the number of tire changes they had to go through in that just to get that finished video out, right?
I can't imagine how many tires they must have gone through for that.
Yeah,
for that shoot.
it's it's
unbelievable.
Do you think it was the best one he ever did?
I got to say it was.
Okay.
It's one of my favorites. I mean, the Pikes Peak stuff, dude, is just, you have to watch that, by the way, if you haven't seen that, just to see what he does. Here's what's great about that. We know Ken Block was a great driver, right?
Right.
We know all that stuff. We know you're going to expect to see greatness when you watch him. But what's even better is the amount of great production. His crews, those guys to capture all that stuff,
right,
both audio and video, those guys are amazing.
Yep.
And that's what made them what they were. And so again, it's just a sad day that we lost Ken, but it's also good to see that they're trying to keep this going. And we wish all those guys over at the Hoonigan family the best of luck with that, and that they can come through with this and bring us something new. I think Ken's daughter is
she's racing
too. She's racing, and so hopefully we'll see her as play a bigger role in that.
Yeah.
To keep
well,
that going,
and she
so.
right. Like she could possibly save the brand.
Well, I'm
we'll see.
certain she could. So, anyway, we're going to move on to our next.
Move down the road. Are we moving down the road?
We're going to move down the road. Man.
Maybe just a little bit west of here, actually. So,
yes.
this has been now. You haven't been through here in a while. If you go, I've been trying to talk everybody into Jay into going to IKEA, which there's not one in Nashville, but there's one in Memphis.
Right.
You just got to haul down, go west out I-40, and it's there, and you get all kinds of cheap home goods. Jay, you've been to an IKEA, right?
I have.
Okay, you know what it's all about.
Yeah,
all right.
I get lost in them, man.
So,
it's like an at-home store.
You gotta
I've been doing a lot.
You gotta
of
go
this.
in with a plan. You have to have a battle plan before you walk into IKEA. Otherwise, you will get lost, and they'll have to send in St. Bernard's. And
good luck finding somebody to help you.
So also just outside of Memphis, and we've talked about this many times. Ford is opening an all-electric. It's not really fair to call it a plant. Ford calls it Blue Oval City. Mm-hmm. It's massive. And there have been billboards all down the I-40 corridor going toward Memphis from Nashville that talk about it, talk about the jobs that are going to be created, thank Ford, like just basically promoting it, right? And so Ford announced that they are delaying the launch of that plant until late 2027. And again, it's not really fair to call it a plant, but it's a manufacturing campus, I guess, right?
And it's an SK. It's a Blue Oval SK joint venture. Also, it's a battery plant.
Yeah,
and they're supposed to be kicking in 6,000 jobs on site, and they were looking to produce about 500,000 Ford all-electric pickup trucks. And so,
GM does it here in Spring Hill.
Right.
They have the LG battery, the Ultium partnership with LG doing their batteries, and they basically have built this massive. If you haven't seen it, you need to drive by the Spring Hill. I mean, it's so traffic congested. It's not really worth doing it unless you have a reason to go through there. But the stuff that they've added since what you knew, which was back when it was Saturn, probably.
Yes.
It'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
It is so big.
I do need to go by there. Here's the thing too. If you guys are not, understanding the economics of Tennessee is a huge automotive industry supplier in many, many ways. In fact, Middle Tennessee is home to, like you just said, GM, Nissan. You've got, it used to be the Saturn,
Mitsubishi.
It used to be the Saturn plants.
GM does Ultium. Yep.
Stuff there.
But it's a dumpster fire, everybody.
It is.
Don't come here.
Ford Glass.
Don't come here if you're thinking about moving here. It's a horrible idea. We're closed.
Yeah.
I just need to always put that in. So they're not going to open this plant. They're delaying it. Do you have any idea why? What's your guess? Why are they waiting?
Look, EV sales have slowed. Okay.
Yep.
And I think that all of the manufacturers who have committed to electric vehicles have realized that they're not selling right now. So the market is struggling a little bit, and they're having to step back and focus on where the sales are at. And sales are up in the internal combustion department. And so Ford is not the only one that recognized this, but when you see Ford stepping back and going, okay, wait a minute, because they were all in, unlike GM. Now GM they're continuing to kind of grow that, the commitment there. It'll be interesting to see how they come out of this slowdown. I mark my words though, after this election, this is an election year, and you guys have to remember that during an election year, there are so many questions up in the air that things tend to slow down because we're not sure what's going to happen. We're not sure who's going to win the election. We don't know what they are truly going to focus on. A lot of it is just to get voted in. They make a lot of promises.
Oh, you're not saying politicians just say stuff to get elected and then change their...
No, never. Right. But I am saying that that has an impact on the economy for sure, especially the automotive industry and the housing. Housing is also down. Inventory is down. So we, not just us, but the big companies like Ford, GM, and everybody are looking at it going, okay, we need to put the brakes on this for now.
Yep.
We're still committed to it, but right now is not the time to put all of our dollars into that. We need to go back here. They're probably looking at increasing production on the standard F-150s, F-250s, F-350s, Super Duties, and stuff like that, because that's been the number one selling line for Ford or in vehicle history for how long?
Oh,
right?
Decades and decades.
So why shoot yourself in the foot?
So I think there might be another factor. Ford is being smart about this.
Yes,
and for those of you that don't remember, I'm going to point out that Ford was the only one of the major automotive manufacturers during the 2008 recession that didn't take government bailout money from the United States government. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Of the big three, right? For the other ones being GM and at that time Chrysler, Stellantis now.
That's right.
So there is. I'm about to hit Bert here. Okay, so here, let me just go ahead and boom.
I hate to say I told you so.
So, it changed on the. Well, it'll come up through the mic. But anyway, my point is my settings got changed. We talked a lot about EVs being first gen and that this was it wasn't the end of the road, so to speak, that the battery technology that was out today was not going to be the battery technology that was going to be out
That's right.
In 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. So I think that's what Ford is working on. We've talked a lot on this program about future technologies and solid-state batteries and that sort of stuff. And that is happening literally as we speak. And so Ford's looking at probably some advancements in that technology because that plant is, like Jay pointed out, developing power cells. If they wait another 6 months to 12 months, it probably gives them a leg up in not having to retool that facility and having the most current product offerings, which will also then take them to a leg up with their competition in terms of range, charge time, all the stuff that EV owners care about, right? So I think there's a little bit of that going on, which is going to end up probably being pretty cool in terms of what we see coming out of Ford in the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and to that point, Keith, you're absolutely 100% correct. And this plant, if you guys recall, we talked about this. Ford is not just focusing on the F-150 Lightning as we know it, right? So that was their first endeavor into the electric pickups segment. But they are working on another electric pickup truck, and it's the code name for it is Project T3. So they're retiming the launch of that, and they're saying second half of 2027 now instead of 2026, I think is what they were shooting for. But here's the thing, and they're learning from the F-150 Lightning, but the T3 platform or the code word for this new truck, it will offer features they say like no other Ford truck has ever offered, including upgraded bidirectional charging capability and advanced aerodynamics. So I'm excited to see the advanced aerodynamics. That's bidirectional charging is nothing new,
right?
Because they had that on the
and you can the trucks now have like the Fords have the thing where you can offload some of that power.
The hybrids do. Yes, that's absolutely correct.
I grew up in a Ford family. I've probably talked about this on this program many times, but I've owned a lot of Fords. My first car was a Ford. My second vehicle was a Ford. My third, fourth, fifth were Fords. And then I got away from Fords. I tried to not just be the loyal Ford kind of NASCAR, Ford, Chevy, whatever, right? Ford has been the innovator the past decade. They really have. And I think that always goes back to them not freaking out. Everybody freaked out during the 2008 recession, but they somehow continued to innovate and not completely shut down their R&D department. This is another example, and it's so hard to not be a fan of what they're doing right now because they do continue to push the envelope, and we love that. That's kind of the thing that we love, that we always find things to talk about that are innovation related, right? That are innovative.
That's exactly right.
So this is another example.
Yeah, this is very cool. Pretty excited that Ford is not like bailing out on it. And I think if you live in Tennessee in that area and you're counting on that coming, I think you're going to get that. It's going to happen. It's just a retiming thing. Let's get past this election year. I think that that's a wise decision for Ford. We don't know what the new administration for this election term is going to bring to the table. We hear a lot of talk and where they're going to be focusing, but that remains to be seen. I don't think you're going to see heavy implementation of those policies right away, obviously, but it'll take some time. And I think Ford is wise to commit to saying, okay, we're going to wait until 2027 to kind of roll out this thing, and gives them time to kind of concentrate on that side of it too. So speaking of Ford, we're on Ford, guys.
Well, and look, we've said this before too. When they do have problems, they tend to do the responsible thing. They tend to take ownership of the problem and do the right thing, which has not always been the case. I mean, the one everybody always points to is the Pinto, but this is another example. So we got a recall. Okay, so before we jump into this recall, two things have occurred to me. Number one, we do enough of these recall notices and topics. We need to have a little recall theme and then just send it over to you at the recall desk. I'll get to work on that. It would be a nice,
I like that, man.
I don't know. Do we roll it back, right? Like it's kind of backward masking.
Do I do this, man?
Yeah,
this
right.
Yeah, right.
And the other thing is, we kind of saw this one coming over some of in the Bronco line because of how hard they're pushing these engines. But do you have it up? Do you want to take it? You're the recall guy. Also, here is the third thing, bonus round. Jay knows a ton about valves and valve train, and this is valve train related. So feel free to wax poetic over here on all the details of this recall and how and why.
Right. So we talked about this a couple of years ago when they rolled out the full-size Bronco. There were many customers that had taken ownership of their new Bronco, and it was the 2.7 liter EcoBoost.
Mm-hmm.
And they were having catastrophic engine failures anywhere between, say, 100 miles and 3,000 miles, right?
Yep.
Some a little higher, but the majority were in that very short time frame. And what they said then, that they had it isolated to a specific engine number range, date codes, and so they recalled,
in the old days we would call that a Friday car, right?
Exactly,
yeah,
a Friday or Monday.
Right.
But so they acted right away, and they had a recall of somewhere around, it was like 10,000 vehicles. Wasn't that much.
Yeah, right.
And we speculated on it, and I know the material of the valve, right? So they were claiming that there was a deficiency in the valve material, okay? I questioned that because I know what the material is. And had some insight from other people within the industry that have worked on that same engine, not necessarily in the Bronco, but had reported similar type issues that were not related to a valve defect, but rather than it was more of an engine design, causing the valves to basically stick within the valve guide and not follow the normal rotation of the cam, which can lead to a couple of things. It can definitely stick in the valve guide and be impacted by the piston, or it can basically stick and continue to run, and as it's opening and closing, it's ramping really hard because it's sticking. So the path of least resistance, the fracture happens in the lower of the 3 radius grooves, and it breaks there. So that's not necessarily a defective valve. Rather a dynamic that's going on within the engine that's causing that to fail. So I kind of felt like they figured out that that's probably what it was, and then it went away. We didn't hear any more. Now, guess what, guys? Ford has just announced that they're going to be recalling Ford Lincoln models, over 90,000 plus vehicles, over the same faulty engine valve. And now it's going to be engines that are equipped with the 3.0 liter, and both of them are the Nano EcoBoost V6
and
engines.
the 2.7, yep.
Yep, 2.7 and 3 liter, and this affects the 21 through 22 Bronco full size, the Edge and Explorers,
and
F-150 trucks, as
Yep.
well as the 2021 through 22 Aviator and Nautilus by Lincoln. So,
dude, how long did it take them to, from the time that initial engine issue was surfaced in the Broncos, to do this? I mean, do you think they were doing R&D the whole time?
I think so.
The whole time? What, it's been like 18 months?
So, yes, because
Roughly?
Here's what you don't want to do. Obviously, the right thing to do is recall when you know you have a defective problem, right?
Okay.
You got to do it for the consumer, right? I think you can't necessarily jump too soon because here's the thing. These are catastrophic failures. They're replacing the engine. That's what Ford is doing for these 90,000 vehicles, okay? If they fail, they will replace the engine. That's what they're saying. So
they're going to put it through a stress test, essentially,
basically
at the dealership, and if it fails the certain checkpoints, then
here's the thing, though. Here's where my expertise comes into play here. Now, I am in the industry, and I am privy to some information. I know where this valve is.
You know what
being
I
made.
like to say in this moment?
What's that?
Jay is like the Liam Neeson of the valve train, automotive industry valve train side. He has a very particular set of skills.
Right.
It's true, everybody. It's true. It's like the only time I can use that.
As what is it? I am what I am.
Yeah. Right. Thanks, Popeye.
Yeah, there you go. So here's what Ford put out. They say that with these EcoBoost engines, in these vehicles, they may contain faulty intake valves that could crack and break, resulting in a loss of drive power and increasing the risk of crash. Before losing motive power, the check engine light may illuminate on the instrument cluster, and drivers may notice the vehicle running rough. Okay, now here's what they're saying. To fix the issue, dealers will perform an engine cycle test and replace the engine as necessary for free. Ford will notify owners October the 7th of 2024, but those with further questions can contact the automaker at 866-436-7332, which is Ford's number for this recall, by the way, is 24
S like Sam. Yeah.
S like Sam 55.
24S55.
Yep. NHTSA Vehicle Safety Hotline is 888-327-4236, or visit its website. And then make sure you have your vehicle identification number. Again, like Keith and I have always told you, that is the DNA of your vehicle.
Your
And
VIN. Yeah, it's all over your car.
Right. That will get you in the door. Now, here's where I question what they're talking about. Defective valves may crack. Okay. So how these valves are made, they're made of a one-piece high chromium steel, and they are supposed to be hardened through the keeper groove to a minimum of about 50 on a Rockwell C scale through those keeper grooves. Now, if there's inadequate hardness or deficient material, if there's deficiencies within the material, I can see that happening. Is it under engineering? I don't think so. So I still question as to whether or not they're defective valves. Now, if they are defective valves, I do believe it would be a process deficiency, and it could be a material deficiency. That would go back on whoever supplied those valves to them. And that is an issue that obviously that supplier will have to deal with Ford. And I'm sure they'll make right by it, but it is going to be a costly recall for Ford, period. And
that's why they're taking the high road. They're doing the right thing. This is kind of what we started this conversation around.
Right. Now,
it's hard to not be a Ford fan.
Here's what I can tell you. Ford has developed a new part number for these engines for the newer production. I am currently looking into that and going to find out what the differences are of this one, this new valve versus what was originally put in there, So please stay tuned to this podcast. I will update everybody on this. So make sure you subscribe to this channel, like us, do all those things, and stay tuned because you're going to want that follow-up. So make sure that we put that in an upcoming podcast. I'll get back to you guys on that. So that's my world that I live in.
You know,
And,
I think you might make it to my next movie script. So from time to time, I drop these movie scripts, right, on the podcast.
Right.
So here's one. So we're in the future, right? The movie is set in the future. And it's you always like to say the future's eclectic, meaning it's a mixed bag of mobility. You might have some hydrogen powered fuels, some EVs, some whatevers, right?
Natural gas, whatever.
And we're far enough into the future that most internal combustion automobiles have gone the way of the dinosaur. But we've got this now. I've got to work on the plot, but I think it's centered around there's one guy that used to do this kind of stuff a long time ago, but something happened and he basically swore it off and said he would never do it again, and they need him to design a valve for this new whatever solution that's going to save the world.
Right.
And you'd be that one guy, but we have to work on this sort of like what caused you to walk away, and like, and then there's got to be a period of time in the movie where there's some convincing that you have to agree to do it. Maybe the homeless sad kid face or something shows up at your door.
Right.
I don't know. I'm working on that
all
one.
I got to say is this, is if I turn up information and all of a sudden some men in black show up on my front door from Ford, I got problems.
Well, yeah. So I'll have the script polished for the next podcast if you're still around.
Right. So just one other thing to add to this, guys, that if you upgrade the material and they haven't fixed the problem as to why the valve is sticking in the valve guide and that's the problem, that valve will break as well.
Okay.
Just saying.
Yeah. So that's, yeah. So in other words, if you do it the way the RV repair people have been working on my engine for the last year and a half, where they just Band-Aid the symptoms and not the actual problem, it's going to come back. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So there you go. Stay tuned, everybody, for that. I promise you I'll follow up on that and give you the best information that I have. And again, I'm closely working on that. So
speaking of comebacks,
man, this is exciting.
Yep,
we've been excited about it since day one because I think that the parent company has done a really good job of understanding the culture behind the name, what this vehicle actually was, and what it meant to America.
Right.
It's so important at how they're handling it. So.
And the company behind it is Volkswagen,
That's
right?
correct.
Okay.
What are we talking about?
So we've talked about this before on the show, the Scout. If you remember, a lot of people mistakenly think they're like old Broncos or old Internationals or, it's a real boxy SUV that ran through the 60s and 70s, right?
That's right.
And kind of died off in the 80s and had a huge following, and you still see some that are restored on the road today and some that aren't restored that are still on the road today. And so Volkswagen, at some point along the way, acquired the brand, and we announced, a year and a half ago now?
Yes.
That they were going to bring the Scout back, and it was going to be electric.
1980, October of 1980 is when...
It's weird how I can just arbitrarily throw out these time frames.
And so, by the way, this date that you're going to mention is 44 years to the date.
Okay. All right.
When they stopped production.
Nice. Okay. So they now have a reveal, which is where did I see this? I thought it was October 24th. Is that right?
That is correct. That is correct.
So now if they were smart, they'd have done it 2 days later and done the whole Back to the Future. I don't know. Whatever.
I hear you.
So they're gonna do the reveal October 24th, 2024, with production starting in 2026. So they're gonna reveal it a full 2 years before it goes into production.
I think they have to. I think we're in that time, Keith. We've talked about this. You really, really have to market before you jump in. I mean, look at what.
Well, they did it with the ID Buzz.
That's correct.
And yeah, okay, that makes sense.
I mean, most most manufacturers are really doing that. When we've heard about the Mach-E, right, from Ford,
Yep.
same thing. It took them a couple years.
Yep. All right.
We heard about the Bronco coming back. How long did it take?
Yeah, it was a while. Yep.
Yeah.
So they're going to build these in South Kakalaki.
Yep.
Where is Blythewood, South Carolina?
Blythewood is just outside of Columbia. It's to the north and west of Columbia, South Carolina. So central South Carolina.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. And it's the brand all new EV platform. It's going to be off road capable. Like all these kind of bloggers and vloggers that follow the patent filings have found a whole bunch of Scout related filings that are kind of interesting
and new names. So some new names for the new vehicles, including throwback references.
Eagle
like
Scout, Girl Scout. No, what?
Scout 2, Scout Traveler, and one of the newer names was Scout Reaper, is what we understand. So
the Scout Cookie, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
This is why you don't let me. I just leave me on the beer naming, but not. Yeah.
Which, by the way, I want to say this: South Carolina has really popped up on the map lately, as they are really appealing to these big manufacturers. I mean, Boeing is in Charleston now. You've got BMW, which is in the Greenville, Spartanburg area, huge plant there. And you've got VW over in Chattanooga, right? You got a VW plant in Chattanooga. It only makes sense to see them come into South Carolina. Why is South Carolina so critical to this? First and foremost, obviously, when you're a company and you're building plants, they're giving you incentives to move there. That's why they're doing it. But here's what makes South Carolina so attractive. You've got two major ports to access product for production and or send product out across the country. You can do it by rail or boat. You've got Charleston, South Carolina, which is a huge port, and then you also have Savannah, Georgia, which is only just a few hours away from where the plant is at. So it's a big deal. And of course, Hyundai has their huge EV plant and battery plant that's just outside of Savannah now as well. Why did they put it there? Because it's right there by the port.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
So it all makes sense. Plus, again, you're talking two states that are just hungry for industry. And you've got a lot of people moving to those states right now. They're very appealing to people. You've got lower cost of living at the moment there. So it's very appealing for companies like this to move in. And plus, they've got a great workforce to choose from. There's a lot of people there that have specific manufacturing skills.
Yep.
Because that state is very, very blue collar. South Carolina is.
And they potentially are ramping up this whole time that same second-gen battery technology concepts that Ford's working on. I mean, remember, VW is a major player, right? Like, they own all kinds of automotive brands and mobility brands, motorcycle brands, whatever. Man, you better not miss with a name like Reaper.
No.
If you're going to, like, the Scout Reaper better be exactly what
coincidentally, there is a pepper out there called the Carolina Reaper, which was developed in Fort Mill, South Carolina, which is not, but it's like an hour and a half from that plant. So I got to believe that there's a little homage to that. But, everybody in the off-roading industry, they want to have, I mean, you've got Ford with the Raptor, right? You've got all of these like hardcore names, right? For these off-roading vehicles. So it's appealing. It's a marketing thing. I get it. But it'll be interesting to see what that package entails, So get ready for that.
Yep. I'm excited. Yeah, I am too.
Keith and I will keep you guys posted. Who knows? Keith and I may take a ride down to the plant.
So, little behind the curtain, little inside information. Jay and I have been pitching and kicking around some ideas for the show. I should have mentioned this earlier in the program. Well, it's a bonus for you guys that have listened this long. We're looking at doing some more guests, like just having more guests on the podcast. We're working on that. We're also talking about doing a brewery tour where we just podcast from some breweries. And this could potentially be one of those, because it's in the evening, where we just go somewhere and watch the reveal and either live stream it or something, right? And talk about it. Are you going to be, that's October 24th, it's a Thursday, I think. That's the week before SEMA. I don't know,
Yeah, I'll be at SEMA, Apex.
but not probably that day. You probably
Not
won't
that
leave
day.
till So who
that'll
knows?
be-
We'll make sure you're subscribed and you follow us, and you'll find out. And we will bring this up again. We've got a little bit of time to get to it. Speaking of time to get to it.
Well, what do you need to get to places?
Right. So the Tesla RoboTaxi. Now, when we started podcasting, there was almost never a week that went by or a podcast that went by that we weren't positive, like in a positive light, talking about either Tesla or Elon Musk. And we've kind of transitioned to late, as has most of the industry, to what's going on over there at Tesla. And a lot of that delays with the Semi, delays with the Cybertruck, delays with a lot of the Tesla products. Starlink's had its share of problems, and so on and so forth. So this RoboTaxi thing, apparently now is going to be unveiled or revealed or whatever.
Yeah, basically a month from now, they're saying October 10.
Yep.
After years of delays, there's a report that the Tesla's RoboTaxi, which will operate through a ride-hailing service, will be shown on October 10th. And now, if you guys have followed us or followed Tesla and Elon and his shenanigans, you take it for what it's worth. This may change again.
Yeah, they could move the date.
Right.
But they have an event scheduled. It's at the Warner Brothers Discovery Movie Studio in Burbank, California. So it's in Hollywood.
Yep.
And they're going to do a big Hollywood unveil of it, and I'm sure Elon will be there or whatever. Now, I have no doubt that the proving grounds for this was something that we did a video on, and you can go check this out on our YouTube channel. And my son Sideshot makes fun of me because they were Model 3s that we rode in the Las Vegas Loop Tunnel.
That's right.
And they were self-driving. And we did the ride and shot the video, and I think I called it a Model X, or I got the model name wrong when they were pulling up. I was like, hey, it's a Tesla Model X or whatever, and it was a 3, or I called it a 3 and it was an X or whatever.
Right.
And he just still, to this day, he's like, you think you know cars?
Right.
You know,
That's
and
so
he
funny.
finds that one mistake on, literally that was recorded.
Good call, Sideshot.
But
you know your stuff.
No doubt some of the testing was done in that Las Vegas Loop for these devices. So, because now I'm speculating, like, what's it going to look like? Is it going to be its own vehicle? Is it going to look like a Model 3 on steroids with a whole bunch of tech in it? Right? Who knows?
Right. Well, in 2022, Elon said that the RoboTaxi will not feature a steering wheel or pedals.
Yeah, but he also said that the windows in the Cybertruck were unbreakable. And,
right.
I mean, he says a lot, Jay. He says a lot.
This is true. They're also supposedly creating their own ride-hailing app with the service utilizing both a fleet of upcoming robotaxis as well as consumer cars.
So they're going after the Uber and Lyft market, which interestingly, you know, at least around here, I don't know if it's all over the country or not, those rideshare service drivers went on strike about a week or two ago around here.
Right.
And there was a big event going on here during that time, and you know, it kind of impacted in Nashville, like people coming to and from the airport being able to get rides. If you go the full RoboTaxi route, you just get rid of the driver factor, and it might be interesting timing.
Yeah, could very well be.
Would you do it if this comes out and it's available next year?
Yeah.
And you have the option to pull let's play a game a little bit. You can pull up in the app and you can get an Uber or a Lyft from the airport, or you can pull a Tesla RoboTaxi from their app, and they're relatively the same price. Which one would you pick?
I would have to try the RoboTaxi.
Okay.
I would want to do it. Plus, the speculation is right that it's gonna. So they're initially call it a cyber taxi. So there's some speculation that it might be similar in style of some way, shape, or form as the Cybertruck. That remains to be seen. Nobody's seen it. We have no idea. It's been very hush hush. But yeah, I would do it. Hey, look, as long as I have insurance on myself,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
I mean, obviously they would assume some liability,
Well,
you know, unless you have to sign something.
and nowhere in this that I'm seeing has anyone from Tesla said there will not be an operator in the vehicle.
Truth. I mean, you think about what we went through when we were in Las Vegas. We were expecting to have fully autonomous vehicles to ride in that tunnel, right?
Right.
Not happening.
Even the Uber and Lyft stuff that we did the year prior, the unions required them to have
that's exactly right.
2 guys up front basically monitoring the vehicle the whole time.
That's because the technology is so uncertain. You want that human intervention in case of an emergency, and
Yep.
that's why they're there. So, still it's extreme. It's in its infancy, and I say that strongly because there's so much work to be done when it comes to autonomous driving. We're just not there yet.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
the
think.
infrastructure's not there for sure.
So this will be interesting to see how far this goes. But you know what? Hey, if there's anybody that can pull it off and put something out there and shoot from the hip, it's Elon. You know, why not, right?
Yeah.
Give it a whirl.
Yeah.
So, but we will follow up with you guys on that story. Also, we've got a lot of stuff happening this month and next month. Before, and what's interesting to me is like a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today, like these reveals and stuff, it's all happening before SEMA.
Yeah.
You just kind of
well, that's
wonder,
a whole other concept of,
That's
you know,
right.
do people even care about SEMA reveals anymore?
Truth, but maybe it may be. It'll be interesting too because we talk about the Electrify Expo, and we'll have to talk to our good friend Neil Chin over there and find out, you know, what they know as well, because they are closely in contact with a lot of the EV manufacturers out there, because that's what they do. It's electric mobility. So we'll talk to Neil and maybe get him back on the show too, and see if he's got any information that might be useful to all of us. So, but there you have it, guys. We got a RoboTaxi about to be revealed. So here we go. We'll see what happens.
So, found out what to do with my hands now that we're at the end of the podcast. Basically putting the armrest supports to use.
Oh yeah.
It only took me an hour. There goes that lady with the vacuum cleaner again.
Absolutely, man.
I say at this point, I think it's worth the risk. We made it through this recording without the vacuum cleaner getting kicked on. We're trying some new things, everybody. Bear with us. Still good show quality, but you may see some changes here and there to kind of how we're doing this on purpose. So we want to, you know, innovating is not just a thing that we talk about. I think we try to model that in our lives too.
Right.
So supporting my arms is the current. Oh, and speaking of support, here's ways you can support the show. If you're not subscribed over on the podcast side, go to our website at partscounterguru.com. You can find the podcast links, I think, or podcast tab at the top, and it'll take you to the links for all your favorite podcast platforms. It's free, as Jay mentioned in the beginning. If you want to support the show, it's a two-way street, right? So go to our show specials tab on that same website, and there are links to our brand partners, and you can find all their great stuff, and you can find reviews on that same stuff on our YouTube channel. But we also give you some of the best discount codes you can find on those same links. So not only are you getting it and we're getting a little bit of an affiliate commission off of it, we're giving you guys the best price on it that you can get. You're welcome. And the other thing you can do is just leave us a good review on one of your podcast platforms. That helps us continue to grow. And it's getting to the point where we look at the weekly metrics every time we release a podcast. And we're going to get better at doing those weekly, or I will. And we kind of giggle at the numbers, right? Like, it's like, dude. Right?
Well, no lie. For example, Keith sent me the metrics over last week, and I'm looking at our podcast listens are up over 400%. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, for us to grow that quickly, we're having a blast doing this. And Keith did mention this too, but if you can't buy anything, if you're not interested in buying anything, you can actually help us out. Just go to our YouTube channel and watch the podcast, the video version of this. By you watching that, just watch it. That helps us out. It's free to you, and it helps us out. So make sure you get over there and subscribe and give us some thumbs up and all that stuff. So,
All right, is that it for this time?
yeah, I'm getting a dry throat, man. I
Coughing on the mic.
I left
Yeah.
my water over there.
So if you're not watching this, you can't tell, but when you're in a studio environment, you're kind of trapped. You know, you have cords going around you, under you, across your feet, across your legs, laptops on my lap, laptops on Jay's lap. And I'm looking at his water right here, and it is literally just out of arm's reach. And so that means we got to wrap this up so that Jay can deal with his yeah. All right. I'm gonna try to be fast, bud. In the words of Henry Winkler, not but that same Henry Winkler, right? The Fonz. Some of you may know him as the
Right
Fonz.
on.
If you will it, it is no longer a dream. For my pal Jay over there, I'm Keith. Thank you guys for making us a part of your lives. We'll see you on the next one.